you told me once that the moon listens to those who speak with their hearts instead of their mouths, that she understands the language of longing far better than any poet could. I remember the way you said it, quietly, as if the night itself might lean closer to hear. That evening, everything felt hushed, even the sea below the cliffs where we stood, even the air between us. I was trying to memorize the way the moonlight fell across your face, the faint curve of light tracing your jaw, the way your eyes reflected something gentler than time. I had never thought of the moon as a teacher until you showed me how she keeps glowing even when unseen, how she never hurries her return, how she forgives every shadow that tries to cover her. That's what you did for me. You taught me how to keep my light, even when life tried to dim it. You made me understand that love is not always loud, that sometimes it's a steady radiance waiting patiently behind clouds. I think about that lesson often, especially on the nights when you are far and I am surrounded by expectations and crowns heavier than I can admit. The world sees me as a symbol, a promise, a future they can shape. But you saw me before all that. You saw the girl who still believes in stories, who hides her fears beneath polished smiles. When I look up at the moon, I feel that same kind of seeing, as though she, too, understands what it means to be both adored and alone. You said she teaches humility because she borrows her glow. She reminds us that nothing beautiful exists in isolation. I never forgot that. When I stand beneath her now, I think of you, not as someone who filled the silence, but as someone who made it sacred. You taught me that love doesn't ask to be noticed. It asks to be trusted, to be patient, to be true. Sometimes I imagine writing to you through the light she spills, as though each beam could carry a piece of what I can't say aloud. If she could speak, I think she would tell you how I watch her from my balcony, wishing you could see her from where you are. It comforts me to think that you do, that somewhere across distance we share the same glow. It's strange how light can connect what the world keeps apart. You once told me that the moon's pull on the ocean is a kind of love story, a longing so constant it moves tides. I smiled when you said that, not realizing you were teaching me something deeper, that love doesn't have to touch to be felt. It just has to be steady, even when unseen. That lesson has become my quiet faith, my compass through loneliness. And though I cannot reach for you, I reach for her, and in doing so, I find you every time. There are nights when the moon hides completely, and I struggle to remember her shape. Those are the nights that test me most, when everything feels uncertain, and duty presses heavy against my heart. But then, I think of your voice telling me, even when you can't see her, she's there. You said it about the moon, but I know now you meant love. You meant us. And so I breathe softly until the ache eases, until I can feel that invisible warmth again, the quiet assurance that love, once real, doesn't vanish, it transforms. You taught me to see constancy not as confinement, but as grace. I used to believe love was fire, bright, consuming, impossible to hold, but you showed me it could be light instead, enduring, silent, guiding. You turned my restless heart into something still enough to reflect it. I often wonder how you learned all that wisdom, how you carry so much calm inside you. Maybe it's because you've looked at life from its edges, while I've only lived within its center. You taught me that the truest love isn't about possession or proximity. It's about presence, the kind that doesn't fade when distance grows. Sometimes, when the palace halls echo too loudly, I whisper your name just to hear it soften the air. I imagine you standing beneath the same sky, your face lifted to the same pale light, and for a moment, the world feels smaller, kinder. The moon becomes our meeting place, our bridge of silver. You taught me that love is not bound by geography, that the heart can find its way across oceans of expectation. I didn't know that before you, now I live by it. You made me notice how the moon never competes with the stars, how she simply glows in her own rhythm, confident in her quietness. I envy that. In a life built on ceremony, where every gesture is measured, every smile rehearsed, I long for that kind of effortless being. You once told me that love can make us brave enough to be real. At first, I didn't understand. Now I do. Because of you, I've learned to love without performance, to feel without apology. You taught me that tenderness can be its own form of strength, that I don't have to hide softness to be worthy of admiration. You saw through every polished facade, and somehow that never frightened you. You made it seem simple, to be seen, to be loved anyway. When I think of the moon now, I think of reflection, how she holds the light of another, yet becomes something uniquely her own. That is what you've done for me. You reflected back to me everything beautiful I'd forgotten to see in myself. You never took credit for it, never tried to make my light yours. You simply stood there, steady and kind, letting me shine when I was ready. That humility is something I will never forget. The moon may be your teacher too, for you love without wanting to own, guide without trying to lead. That's a rare kind of love, the kind that trusts, that listens, that lets another bloom. I didn't know love could be that selfless until you lived it. You once told me the moon is always changing, but that doesn't make her faithless. It makes her real. I've thought about that every time I've felt uncertain, every time I've feared that change might make me lose myself. You taught me that love can survive transformation, that it can evolve without fading. Maybe that's why I'm not afraid anymore of time or distance or silence. I carry your lessons like light beneath my skin, quiet reminders of how love can exist beyond the need for constant proof. I used to think I needed promises to feel secure, but you've shown me something truer, that love is its own proof, constant as the moon's pull on the tides. I feel it in everything I do, in every calm breath, in every glance at the night sky. There are moments when I stand before the mirror, weary from the day, and I see her silver light spilling through the window, wrapping around me. I imagine it's you, reaching across the dark, just to remind me that I'm not alone. I whisper, thank you, though I know you can't hear it. You taught me gratitude, not the kind spoken in grand speeches, but the quiet kind that lingers in the heart. You made me grateful for silence, for waiting, for the sacredness of distance. I think that's the real beauty of what you gave me, peace. You made love feel like a resting place, not a battlefield. You turned longing into something holy, something that doesn't wound, but heals.